everyone. Thanks for joining us. We have two outstanding poets with us today, John Yau and D.A. Powell. D.A. will read first, and then John. D.A. Powell's books include Chronic Repast and Useless Landscape, or A Guide for Boys, all from Grey Wolf Press. In addition to teaching at University of San Francisco for the past 20 years, Powell has taught at Harvard University, Stanford, Columbia, UT Austin, and University of Iowa. His honors include the Kingsley Tufts Prize, the Lyric Poetry Award from the Poetry Society of America, the Shelley Memorial Award from the Academy of American Poets, a National Book Critics Circle Award in Poetry, and fellowships from the NEA and the Guggenheim Foundation. Here's a brilliant poet, D.A. Powell.
Thank you, Harry. It's wonderful to be back with you at the beginning of a new year. I know it's a year that is full of uncertainty and doubt, just like Keats's description of negative capability. So I'm going to call this the negative capability year. I'm going to begin with a poem entitled Trigger Warning. Trigger warning. I dated an X-ray tech, but he never saw me. Dated a magic act, but he never sawed me. Had a lover who was a painter. He drew everyone around him, and he claimed he'd drawn me too. But where were my sketches? I went out with amphetamines. We couldn't sleep with each other. I had a fling with a boomerang thrower. Didn't see that coming. And then there was the date with Destiny, who stood me up till he couldn't stand me no more. Didn't see that coming either. Endings suck. Better duck. This next poem is about sound waves. I'm fascinated by the way that sound waves are used in medicine for ultrasounds to locate good and bad things in the body, and also how dolphins and whales and bats utilize sound waves to navigate the world. This is called echolocation. There's a saying we have down in the caverns: whatever you do, is going to come back to you. There's a saying we have down in the back cave, whatever you say, you can't get away, way down in the ground, you still will be found out. There's a saying, down in the grotto, this is their motto. What is concealed, sealed, is someday revealed. These variations on a theme radiate, reverberate, echolocate, common brown bats or pinpoint accurate ultrasound of a baby's crown, vestigial tailbone, clone of a clone, son of a liver, a bladder, 2 kidneys, 2 intestines, various glands, the granddaughters you thought you'd never have, the abnormalities on a duct, an artery, a life of being open to most anything, the love you lost deep inside you, the distressed surfaces that rebound the sound do not rebound quite as quickly. Whatever you do, do, Batman. Speaking of Batman, I've been writing about Batman off and on over the years, and I have two Bat people poems. This one is about one of Batman's arch nemeses, Catwoman. And I was imagining what Catwoman's negotiations were when she sat down to accept the role of villain and Catwoman. She seems like she would have a lot of demands. This is called Catwoman's Clause, as in legal clause, C-L-A-U-S-E. Catwoman's Clause. Writer number 7, cool milk, not cold, not warm, served in a non-reactive dish like porcelain or glass. No tin, no coppers, and not too much butterfat. I'm watching my hips and haunches. No leopards on the set, no pumas, no jags. I want house pussies, no wild flea bags from the veldt, and only real fur for my bottom. No felt, no dogs allowed, of course. No laser pointers. I'm tired of all that. No toys, unless they're floppy fish that shimmer in the moonlight. No catfish. I hate the idea of whiskers on a koi. I want the pond, but not the wet of it. This pelt stays dry unless I lick it myself. C-section on petting, static electricity, and rubbing the wrong way. I can't be collared or dressed in a hat nor vest. I must remain cat. I must be wondered at like a golden sphinx, a leap into the empress's lap, a royal family member to whom is paid such deference. Be quiet while I nap. I was a big fan of the Batman TV series that ran in the early 60s when I was a child. And I only realized years and years later that the entire series was built on couplets. 2 episodes would run per week, and the first episode would introduce a villain, and the second episode would resolve the conflict. And the titles that the producers gave to the episodes were actually rhymed couplets. So I decided I would write a poem in rhymed couplets as egregious as the ones that were used for the titles of those original episodes. This is called Same Bat Time. Riddle me this, Catwoman hissed. Are they, Batman and Robin, a cop and a bottom, a rich and his bitch, or a pimp and his wench? She was just being catty when she called the 2 daddy and boy. Wonders never cease, she exclaimed to her kiddies. Then she scratched Joker's eyes out at poker. Meanwhile, in Gotham, Bruce sold Dick and bought him 2 tight tights, bites, holy moly and moly. Such folly. Catwoman grew tired of Bat and traded it in for some twat plus an occasional fling with old Ping Breath before he got caught robbing a bank, apprehended by Chief O'Hara. Frank Sinatra popped out a window as the boys climbed to Black Widow. A final couplet, written in searchlight, captures at last Gotham's dark night. Also during the pandemic, I watched all of the Tarzan movies that were made with Johnny Weissmuller and Maureen Sullivan. There were 6 of them, and they inspired a couple of poems about what happened after everybody left Tarzan. This poem is called Cheetah After. Cheetah was, Tarzan's chimpanzee companion. Cheetah After. He was a changed chimp after what Hollywood put him through, retired to Palm Springs and opened a home for apes abused by show business, circuses, space programs, commercials, and the like. He took up painting, played golf, and never gave up smoking. They gave him a star in the desert on the Walk of Fame, such as it is in Palm Springs, in cement. Hollywood was fickle, and the mammal du jour was Flipper or a killer whale known as Free Willy, and all the damn dogs, Rin Tin Tin, Wonton Ton, Lassie, Benji, Cujo, Tiger, and that hee-haw hound named Blue. Cheetah was blue. Cheetah felt cheated. All that he knew was how to run away from lions, ride the backs of zebras, swing from the Silver Springs trapezes above the lagoon, and ride an elephant triumphantly, which frankly is a lot. He hurled himself into his art, some of which you'll find at cheetahthechimp.org. Only Jane Goodall, of all the Janes in his life, remained his friend. And what of that man who once said, "Cheetah, friend," and thumped his chest like a silverback ape? He never writes Cheetah back, not even a holler. So Tarzan and Jane, because of the morality code of the ages, they were not married in the traditional sense and hence could not be perceived as having had sex. So the only way that they could have a baby was to find one in the jungle. And they named him Boy. So this is Boy Grows Up. Tarzan and Jane have a boy. His name is Boy. He runs away from the jungle with his elephant and chimp. He hopes to buy a plane, like the one they found him in, the night he fell from the sky, like the child of a Greek god, tossed off of Olympus. Civilization dumped him, yet he longs to let back in. And when they let him, why, it's just the circus tent for him. He runs away again. Away he runs. Boy on the waves, boy on the rails, boy tucking tips in his underwear, which he only wears to work. When will he be free again? After 10, says Boy. Boy gone wild, gone long in the tooth, but all boy, this boy called Boy, as you'll see in the sequel, Boy on the Sunset Strip. Last year, I was teaching a poetry workshop, and I always like to give students prompts. And for the semester, our prompts came from disco songs. And I wrote in class along with the students. Most of what I wrote, I wouldn't share with anyone. But this poem was written inspired by the Cheryl Lynn song, Got to Be Real. And it's called To Be Real. Pinocchio wanted to be a boy instead of a toy. He tried cigars, hooch, and God knows what else. He took a drag from a fag and let it out. His head spun like it did on the lathe. He tried on clothes that made him look femme. He tried on clothes that made him look him. He whittled his twig down to a knot, and every time he tried to be something he was not, that nose of his grew sharp and pointy. He got a sliver in his finger from picking at himself. He grew balls, a sack, a wiener made of wood, but he was still not convinced he was a member of the humankind. He wished upon a star. Would the star make him real? Crickets. This poem was not inspired by a disco song. It was inspired by a group of actors here in San Francisco back in the late 80s and early 90s that would put on ridiculous mashups of 70s TV shows and 80s TV shows, sort of made into slasher movies. And I will tell you the name of the group. It's in the poem. So, but they are the Sick and Twisted Players. This is called Snow White's My Bloody Valentine. Snow White's My Bloody Valentine was my first introduction to the Sick and Twisted Players, who put on low-budget theatrical slashers based on smarmy TV shows. Partridge Family, Friday the 13th, Texas Chainsaw 90210, in an industrial garage behind the Leather Biker Bar on Harrison, near the Central Freeway overpass. Snow was a drag queen. The queen was trans. The animals of the forest were plush puppets from community thrift, including a spider, an octopus, a raccoon, and Alf. The point is, nothing was spared. Everybody was slaughtered, as happens so often in the queer community. And copious blood, feared for its possible infectiousness, was everywhere. Oh, I miss the sick and twisted universe, the makeshift, threadbare costumes and cardboard set pieces. We are doing it all ourselves, said Tony vaguely, artistic director. We have no corporate donors. A little piece of the roof fell off. Dopey and Doc made out. Snow was falling to pieces. Someday her prince would come, probably during the beer bust next door. This poem is also inspired by movies and about trains. When I was a child, I was obsessed with trains. We lived near the train tracks. And this is called Passing Through. Watching Picnic again for the umpteenth time. We need more trains. The tin-roofed stations in red brick or the grand multi-track white terminals. Someone left me by train once, tearily, and I never should have let his jive ass back in to collect his things that were stashed in Patty's room. Patty's room is the closet. He was a closet case. He was a cliche. He left by train, but the train was a bus. Mysteries unfold on trains. Strangers disembark, often enough to disrupt your day. My chief fear on trains is not murder, nor stumbling into the wrong berth. There is no wrong berth. My fear is that I'll have to ride backward into memory. I hate memory. My first train memory is the circus, puffing by on its way to winter in Florida. Even after I stood at the porch and watched the L&N, hoping for giraffes, there are no giraffes in most circuses, so I was obviously a forlorn child. Lonesome whistle. Did Hank Williams walk to the crossing guard, blinking its red light across his face at night? Through a window he hoped someday to climb out. Trains are sad as elephants, lumbering along or pulling down tents. Can't blame Kim Novak for wanting to run off with William Holden, especially after seeing him with his shirt off, dancing under the pink and green Chinese lanterns. Him moving in. I too would hold on, even though I'm sure it's wrong for Kim. It's wrong for him. Where do people who are wrong for each other meet? But in the movies or on trains. Best to meet a man who's moving, passing through. Let him ruin your weekend, but not your life. That's what weekends are for. Okay, I think this is the last movie poem. And it's not really a movie poem. It's just movies sort of sneak in as they do in real life. I wrote this poem while I was in residency in Northern Ireland. I was out in the countryside. And I don't know why this poem occurred to me because it has nothing to do with the Irish countryside at all. But it's called Project Apollo. Apollo as in the Greek god of practically everything. Project Apollo. I was the pool boy, but it was billiards. I got up on the table with a feather duster and did a little dance like the honeybee to get the green felt green again. I felt it in my stinger. I felt it in my pockets. The god of light shined his light on me and all around. And later it was his scope, because also the god of medicine, also the god who killed every boy he loved, which may have been only one good one. Then I appeared in ads for pools or ads for pool boys. I appeared in a theater near you, like The Hustler, a movie about a fast boy who plays pool. Paul Newman played fast Eddie Felsen and appeared in a theater near me, and also Wet Daydreams. I used to splash myself with his dressing, undressing on the billiard table, and later by the pool of a poodle groomer who tried to quaff me. He never came up for air. He also scratched. Also the god of archery, of games, of hawks, of the discus, and of the stray, the ricochet. And I'm going to end with this poem, which I wrote during a previous rainy season. I am hoping that California gets a lot more rain. I was complaining about it when I wrote this poem, which is why I wrote the poem, so that I would think about the good things that rain brings us. This is called As for What the Rain Can Do. Wash me in blossoms yet to come. Lift my boat. Flood the rice fields where the egret lands. Complex map. Rinse off a bench. Turn on a dime. Give you something to think about. Feed an aspiring stream. Tell you by thunder it's coming. Stand you up. Play a little music on the rooftop. Get a body good and wet. Open the golden tulips. Mix us a drink. Harry, thanks so much for having me. I'm looking forward to hearing John.
Thank you, DA. Your poetry is so effortless, it seems almost. It's fun, playful, inventive. And, you know, some of your themes, love, pop culture, myths, rain. You're great. We have 2 minutes left. I know you love movies, so we could talk more about your poetry, but why don't you, in a minute, let me know a few of the films that you loved in 2024.
I just saw the Timothy Chalamet Bob Dylan biopic, which I liked a lot, which is surprising because I never really liked Bob Dylan's voice. I do like his songs when they're done by other people. I also loved Challengers with Zendaya, and I just saw, I'm going to forget the title, but it's the one with Jesse Eisenberg and Kieran McCulkin, where they go to Poland.
A Real Pain or something?
A Real Pain. Not a great title. And last night I watched the strangest Peter Bogdanovich movie on DVD called Targets. Do you know this movie?
Oh, yeah, with Boris Karloff.
Yeah, Boris Karloff's last big film.
That's right.
Bogdanovich's debut.
His debut, what a debut.
Well, they're great. I love A Complete Unknown and Timothy Chalamet. He's just fabulous. He may be the best actor of his generation, but we have to move on to our next wonderful poet. So thank you.
All right.
It's always such a pleasure. Everything you read, you always feel so relaxed. And I could talk more to you about that, but in the future. So thank you once again, D.A. Powell.
Thank you. Thank you, Harry.
Our next poet is John Yau. John Yau is a poet who has been publishing reviews and essays on art and literature since 1978. He has authored and contributed to numerous monographs, including Joe Brainerd, Liu Xiaodong, Thomas Nokowski, Wilfredo Lamb, Catherine Murphy, John Pye, Liquid Steel, Richard Arch White Wager, pardon my pronunciation for these, Into the Desert, A Thing Among Things, The Art of Jasper Johns, and Joan Mitchell, works on paper 1956-1992. He was the recipient of the 2017 Jackson Prize in Poetry, and his recent books of poetry include Tell It Slant 2023 and Genghis Khan on Drums 2021. Since 2012, his weekly reviews have appeared in the online magazine Hyperallergic Weekend. He received a 2019 Rabkin Prize for his art criticism and a 2024 American Book Award for his book of essays, Please Wait by the Coat Room, Reconsidering Race and Identity in American Art. The exhibition, Disguise the Limit, John Yau's collaboration with artists, curated by Stuart Harodner, is currently at the Schneider Museum of Art in Ashland, Oregon. Here's a superlative poet, John Yau.
Oh, thank you. All right, so the first poem, I thought I'd read, I'm doing my selected poems to come out this year, so I'm just going to read from different parts of my life, I guess. Apartment. According to Lincoln Steffens, Mabel Dodge's apartment at 23 Fifth Avenue was a place where socialists, trade unionists, anarchists, suffragists, poets, relations, lawyers, murderers, old friends, psychoanalysts, IWWs, single taxers, birth controllers, newspapermen, artists, modern artists, club women, women's place is in the home women, clergymen, and just plain men all met, and stammering in an unaccustomed freedom, a kind of speech called free, exchanged a variousness in vocabulary called, in euphemistic optimism, opinions. This is after Emma Goldman, the anarchist, and it's from love letters she wrote to her boyfriend. So it's basically quoting her. After Emma Goldman, I want my sweetheart, Willie boy. I want to give him the treasure box. She is simply starved and will swallow him alive when she gets hold of him. The treasure box is full of red wine and waits for Willie to drink it all. I is hungry and thirsty. You're like anarchism to me. The more I struggle for it, the further it moves away from me. Let me forget that I have neither home nor country. After Heinrich Heine, a German poet, things are worse in hell than our theater managers know. Otherwise, they wouldn't put on so many bad plays. In hell, it is quite hellishly hot. And when I was there during the dog days, I found it unendurable. We get few official reports from there that the poor souls down there are forced to spend all their time reading bad sermons written up here. This is slander. It's not that awful in hell. Satan would never concoct such a subtle form of torture. To me, hell is a big kitchen with an endlessly long stove on which stand 3 rows of iron pots. This one's a little, well, it's just called documentary cinema. Wait a second. Documentary cinema. Money moves the herd, divides the nods from the hard-nosed, keeps others lacquered shut. Occasionally, unexpected turbulence from a recalcitrant stump lantern introduces confusion, but these interruptions are not unexpected and easily papered over. Well, across the aisle, another globe sets off sparks. What animal do you most resemble when you are not an armadillo, surrounded by sordid ornaments, sweaty to the touch? Tender bellow, mortified by fat, postcard gargoyle in need of a second bath, mouth full of severed thumbs, pauses in leaky silence, station changes, climb into latest examples of a ruined civilization, what we call the present. Moon pasted frozen bright on wall near names of repeatedly missing, adjacent to commuter clatter, some filled with hard eyes, wheel cover pandering the paper blocks, championing virtues of carbon trash, rods circulating cups on ice, another bleeding sky cools at its own pace. Just a second. Lost painting. A stirring of the uninhibited senses until she became pigment on a surface. Others lined up and began dreaming, unrepentant wastrels. There's no clock to guide them, no sheep or police officer to show them which way the path will betray their footsteps. Addendum. She didn't die because they said she did. On her way to the far-off mountains, a city bellowing with smoke, a stone cottage in the forest where the woodcutter has just cut off his hand. That was just the way a poet saw her in chrysanthemum time during her pilgrimage to the incomprehensible. He did not know she was walking in sunlight. He was too far away to see her profile, too blind to realize he was beside her every step of the way. Disquieted by hearing her name whispered by ghosts gathered along the river, soaking away the stains of their last life in the frothy current, she did not fit into the folds of the painting releasing her, and he knew it. This is written, D.A. Powell read some poems written during COVID, as did I. Yeah, well, you'll get it. This is not me talking. I hope you realize that. This is somebody talking. They cannot say that they invented the atom bomb. They keep crickets in cages and listen to frogs. They don't like to use a knife and fork. They don't drink milk and prefer to eat pigs. They use a different horoscope than one in the Sunday newspaper. They cry when no one's looking and they don't count their tears. They don't write words that can be translated into English. They brush in their sons with dusty black ink. They know how to stop juices from flowing to the brain. They claim to have invented spaghetti, but they don't eat waffles. They like to keep their old people alive as long as possible. They venerate the dead as if they were still sitting beside you. They spit on the sidewalk while talking with their friends. Their hair is great for wigs, and they're good at manicuring. I'll just read part of this. It's a little long. It's called Boris Karloff and the Mummy Meets Dr. Fu Manchu. Emerging from the woods, the audience stumbles upon an isolated scene. In the late afternoon's arcade of artificial gloom, a dainty dotted hand deftly smooths the lower slope of a massive forehead, zoomed to close-up. Thick, oblong plane's corrugated surface, its vertical grooves sprouting with stiff thistle or hard clumps of new hair. Moving suddenly into focus is a multi-leveled chorus of angular limbs, festooned with pin-pricked skulls of uncategorizable animals. A paleontological nightmare, thinks the perverse paleontologist, her imported platinum tongue stud momentarily glistening between her lover's neatly pointed teeth. Color-coded keys shift and finally settle at bottom of lint-lined pocket. Sharks churn and tug, excited by the array of scents, swiftly filtering through their olfactory detectors. Defined by the lingering traces of a mischievous grin, one that suggests satisfaction of a non-verbal order, a heavily jacketed, though unpimpled boy points out the newly severed head of the evening moon, which elsewhere is floating directly above the Bank of Shanghai's misaligned ideograms and misplaced radicals. Soon, every member of this roped-off section of time and space will meld into the unnumbered ranks of invisible spectators condemned to wander across the inclines of a barnacle-encrusted city. Gladys tugs at her store-bought underwear. Is the name of its color Forget-Me-Not? For a month of free parking, you must answer the following question. Whose gloved digits parted the black petals of the actress's accordion before the votive candle slid out of view? She hears, but cannot determine the origin of a voice which whispers, "You're guilty of secreting liquids of a private nature into the public basement." Night's panorama of stars is no longer a coming attraction. The sky darkens to the color of a bruise, and the last of the renegade stars are nailed quickly into place. It's a silly thing to ask to ask someone how you might go about finding out who you are. Presumably, you already know. But in my case, I am of two minds and at least two bodies. One is only visible to me. The other is the one I inhabit but cannot catch sight of. My dilemma is familiar. I can't recognize my reflection as I can only nod to the shadows the director has painted on the wall behind me. These painted blobs move in tandem to my hesitations. We would begin to dance, but that would only prove a distraction to those whose attention I've gathered like wool on a spring day. Oh, ferryman, perhaps I too was meant to guide puppets across the river Styx. Certainly my mission, if you can still call it that, remains largely unknown to me, the dry cleaner and the audience. The small glances cannot be strung together. Rather, we manage to form the extended legs of a polished aluminum tripod on top of which someone has installed a motorized camera. All the seats are taken, and there's nowhere else to move. Time to hunker down and look forward. Darkness, it seems, is approaching. A swift car galloping majestically across the diamond-red tundra. As advertised in the brochure, the temperature is starting to plummet. In the short time you have left, you must persuade the couple in front of you to remove their hats and wigs. So I guess that's my movie poem. I'll read this. It's about Russian letter. It's after the poems of Marina Tsvetaeva. Russian letter. Dear bed of snow, do you still believe there are people who can inject happiness into every room? Dear unrepayable clock, when your eyes are charcoal, is it a matter of gifts thrown into the fire for no other reason than to say, I like to sleep in a motel? I leave the other details of my existence to watchmakers and doctors. Dear masters of the blinking signs, who wants the last word when so many try to hide their dead in ashes, their eyes like nails ready to penetrate the black earth? This is 6, Russian letter 6. Amidst this haste and filth, beside the river's black violin, its sluggish summer tune, should I tell you how you hide the dead without singing? Dear ungovernable lament, are you like a log abandoned on a road of young trees, or is your life a stone smashed to bits, about the one of yourself and the one of the one that is not you, but is the memory of what you wanted? I have only this to say. How is your life with an image? Or has your memory started fading until what you can pry loose from the sea is an island etched in blue smoke? Dear steam, how's your life with a stranger from this world, the one we once walked in, argued over, and tried to burn? It's reading from different books. All right, this is Philip K. Dick's last earthly appearance. Philip K. Dick believed in reincarnation, as I believe Shirley MacLaine does as well. Anyway, it's not Shirley MacLaine's last earthly appearance because she's still with us, so this is Philip K. Dick's last earthly appearance. I'm reprocessing my life after being glued inside a copy of Dante's Inferno. Another writer sentenced to rewrite his novels, a sick, cheapo hack, in order to buy a house, drive a Buick Jetmaster, and wear a suit and tie. How can I prove that he and I dream the same colors and kiss the same crooked air. Another writer sentenced to rewrite his novels as cheap, sick, cheapo hack. An orderly congress of money piles, neat towers illuminating a convoluted situation. How can I prove that he and I dream the same colors and kiss the same crooked air? I confess, containing at least one other truly unsavory human being, an orderly congress of money piles, neat towers illuminating a convoluted situation. It doesn't help that I can recall instances dating back 2,000 years or more. I confess to containing at least one other truly unsavory human being. What if his world is my heaven and my heaven is his world? It doesn't help that I can recall instances dating back 2,000 years or more. I sometimes crash into cobblestone streets and hansom cabs when this happens. What if his world is my heaven and my world is his heaven? I will start by traveling to Earth to prove my visions are entirely real. I sometimes crash into cobblestone streets and hansom cabs when this happens. I'm reprocessing my life after being glued inside a copy of Dante's Inferno. I will start by traveling to Earth to prove my visions are entirely real in order to buy a house, drive a Buick Jetmaster, and wear a suit and tie. Memories of Charles Street, Boston. One day I wake up and my hair has turned white and I'm no longer Chinese. I want to ask my mother about this change in my appearance, but she's been dead longer than I've been alive. You have to take the good with the bad, she used to tell me before trying to drown me in the bathtub. My father sat in the next room in his imported black underwear smoking a perfumed cigar and jerking off in front of the television he had dragged in from the street. It never worked. It still doesn't. And the blue stains on the chair are why I never sit there. This is called After. I've been writing poems around my birthday for the last 6 or 7 years. So this is called After I Turned 71. I did not expect to see myself standing before a mirror. I look like someone I would never want to meet. I wonder if I've made a mistake without knowing it. I'm sure the word disaster does not tell the whole story. I know there's room for improvement, but I decide to skip over that part. I realize this passport is the last one that will be issued to me. I begin to think the joke is not only on me. I can walk in any direction and still end up in the wrong place. I stop trying to make a list of words I will never use again. I decide making sense is no longer an acceptable form of lying. I think it's prudent to let others do the counting. I often tell strangers that I might start vomiting when the seasons begin to change. I agree that reincarnation is a scam perpetuated by life insurance companies. I liked it when the cab driver called me young man and gave him a smaller tip. Read one or two more. Chinatown Blues. Don't keep saying poetry makes nothing happen. I'm not trying to be your surrogate chaplain. I'm going to grow up and be a hatchet man, doing the sharp and shiny thing, being the best I can. Don't tell me the wood is far too green or yellow, or that Mr. Frost, protector of fences, is a jolly good fellow. I'm still going to grow up and tell it slant. Don't even try and tell me I can't. Stop reminding me I have to watch what I say, be polite, or I have to pay and pay. I'm still going to grow up and be a hatchet man, doing the sharp and shiny thing, being the very best I can. I'll read one more. This morning, they released my head from the closet where the university stores last century's computers, lesson books proven wrong. I'm told I've become a gas station in a city powered by electric cars and overdue library card. You were born, shoulders, tears, clocks. You learn different ways. You're unnecessary. You don't need to memorize them. I've been told my head is being moved to a better location, being introduced into warm, welcoming environs. I can sing as much as I want. I have been told this is what it was like for poets in an earlier time. Now it is different, I am told. Now it is better.
Thank you, John, for
You're
such
welcome.
an imaginative, erudite, relaxing, refreshing, freeing, visual and complex and deep poetry reading. I love your poetry, all of them. I especially love Chinatown Blues.
Oh, thanks.
I want to grow up and be a hatchet man. I love that. Well, I want to ask you one question, then maybe if you would like, each of you could say something about the other. But let me just ask you, John, when did you write your first poem?
Oh, I think I was 13 years old. I remember that it had the horrible rhyme of fate and checkmate. So, yeah, I was 13.
Now, what is it? Another one, if I may. And what is it about the poetry form? I know you write criticism, among other things, but what is it about the poetry form that attracts you to it?
Oh, you can say anything you want. You can't quite say that in criticism. They'll just accuse you of free associating. Yeah, I mean, you can make up characters. Or, I mean, I love movies, and I have poems in the voice of Peter Lorre or Boris Karloff. I have a kind of guilty pleasure of liking movies or watching many when I was younger of people in yellowface. Peter Lorre is Mr. Moto. You're not supposed to like this stuff, but I kind of liked it. I watched all the Charlie Chan movies. So in a way, I'm kind of re-inhabiting those figures and kind of playing with what they're actually thinking while they're acting. So,
well, we all love movies. And so why don't each one of you take a minute and talk a little bit about what the other person wrote about? Let's start with John, since he's on, and then DA. John?
What did you want me to do? Talk about what I wrote about?
Well, each you say something about DA's poetry. Then
I love this like ability to rhyme and have this kind of humor within the rhyme, because we don't think of rhyme as necessarily humorous. And, it has a kind of strictness to it, and it's very slippery as language. So you hear multiple meanings in a lot of it, which I think is quite interesting. And it's also painful and tender. I mean, I think of his poems as painful and tender, and I think that's a very hard place to get to.
Thank you, John. DA.
Yeah. Well, I've been a reader and admirer of John's work for a long time, since my undergraduate days at Sonoma State. And I read your book, Tell It Slant, last year. And I just thought, no one else is doing what John Yau is able to do, which is, part of it is that multivalence, that ability to have other voices, other ideas, other kinds of language, and also your background in art and in the way that you see the world. You are such a good maker of image. You're so present and tactile. And, it's like, I feel like I'm in your poems when I hear them.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
DA mentioned a couple of poems he liked, or movies he liked in 2024. On another show, he talked about some of his top films of all time. We have 1 minute, John. Could you just, within that period, let us know your top 10 films of all time, or at least some of them?
Tales of the Gimli Hospital by Guy Madden is one of my favorite films. Let's see. I like a lot of noir films, Out of the Past, with Robert Mitchum. I just saw The Big Sleep again. I think that's a wonderful movie. Movies where language is really important, and because of the code, there was really a use of language that doesn't exist quite the way it does now. So I like a lot of those movies, and I like one watched recently. I mean, it's kind of old, a Chinese movie called Suzhou River by Louis Ye, and then I also really like Miyazaki's movies. Ash is the White as Snow, I think it's called. Those are great films.
That Ash is the purest white. That's what, yeah. Thank you. We're out of time. I could listen to both of you forever, but this has really been a marvelous education for me. And I'm 84 as I keep going. I love to learn, and you both have helped me with that. And all of us here at MPTF, we're so grateful for you. And so, talking about movies, coming up next is a great cinephile show with Edgar Pablos, Nathaniel Thompson, among others, who are just brilliant in their subject matters and their talk about it. So no more talk from me, but thank you once again, John Yau, D.A. Powell, and here's our wonderful director at MPTF Studios, Jennifer Clymer. Oh, one last thing. Next Tuesday, we have two wonderful poets with us, Allison Townsend from Wisconsin and Sarah McClay from Montana. So thank you once again.
Thank you both.
Harry.
Thank you. Harry, thank you for putting this show together and for the future shows that you're already working on. If either of you gentlemen want to come back, I'm sure Harry would love to welcome you once again.
I'd be happy to come back.
Happy to do it again. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.